A point to note as well is it won't be linear. As I go through the questions, I won't start with the same person each time. We'll be flipping the order around for each question that we do over the course of the discussion.
We're all ready to go on if you are.
Give me 2 seconds to sip some coffee. Yeah, open it up. Hello, everyone. There's people joining slowly and surely there. Thanks to everyone for coming along to the Hustings 2021 for the positions of Vice President of Education, Vice President for Welfare and Equality, and Students' Union President. This is the I guess the main Hustings events. There's been small events on Flirt FM. A lot of people have been interviewed by the college media as well in different shapes and forms. We appreciate all the candidates taking all the different times and opportunities and showing up for everything. It's been great of you all to do that. There are basically 3 seats that we have to deal with: the Vice President for Education, Vice President for Welfare and Equality, and the Presidential. They will be happening in that order. So we will be starting with the Vice President of Education candidates and moving along to Welfare and Equality, and after that the Presidential candidates. And we hope to keep roughly on time and move through the questions as quickly as possible. Everybody's going to be muted out apart from the person that is answering the question that they've been asked. That's just for convenience and lack of confusion, because there are over 100 people in the Zoom chat, 146 at present. So to administer that while running a live event could get messy. So we're just going to basically very systematically talk to people one at a time. So if that's okay with everybody, I'm going to move into the candidates for education. There's 3 candidates running for this position: Nasa Gorrell, Cody Mcgivern and Connell Mccallick. And I am going to start, be working with alphabetical order from the outset. Excuse me. I'll be starting with Nasa Gorrell. Nasa, I would like one. I think you've been unmuted there, so welcome to the Hustings. The first question, I guess we would like to ask you is, how do you plan to create more?
No questions there, Ron.
Thank you. I knew I was doing something wrong. I'm so glad you stopped me.
Am I allowed to introduce myself? Okay. Jadich Nesami Goros Anam Dom August time ag read Lahai last week Dron Dejikis and Cultus and Macklin Owe Galway. So my name is Nessa Gorrell. I'm a 3rd year student of a BA Connect in English and Media Studies in NUI Galway, and I am the only candidate in the race currently in my 3rd year, so I still have another year of education in NUI Galway to go. And I'm running this race this year specifically. I think we all know, and we've all seen with the turnout with the pandemic and the treatment of students, and just how dire the situation has been in the past year and in the past few years with the 3rd level education in Ireland, that we need drastic change. I think our university has done so much wrong against us. We've all seen it. My social media is very early on became dedicated to speaking on the student issue. This year, throughout this year, I've amplified the voices of every student through writing with Student Independent newspaper. I've written about 10 or so articles on the literal experiences of students this year, amplifying their voices, amplifying everything we've gone through, taking a stance against this university and taking a stance against their anti-student sentiments and their anti-student decisions. We've seen what they've done. We've seen everything. We need to be the change, and I think I can help do that. I've taken time out of my course learning, which was really fun to do, especially during this academic year, to learn all about the role of an education officer. And the reality is, being an education officer, there's a few major things that are involved. So, you know, one aspect is belonging to the community, and we have our societies and our clubs and our students' union, everybody to thank for that. We are nothing without our societies and our clubs and our students' union. We need to empower our student body and empower the student community to be together, to work together, to be an amplified voice, to be a unified voice, to take a stance against the university, to take a stance against the decisions they've made that aren't in our favor, as well as that accessibility and inclusivity is a huge issue for all students. And I've worked so hard to develop strategies to ensure that all students have access to our university. I am registered with the Disability Support Services myself. I've availed of the counselling services, especially this year, because it's been so challenging. I know what we have, I know what we need, and I know how to make these changes. In my spare time, I've gone through so many, workshops and trainings. I'm currently in a 5-week training program with a head to implement UDL strategy in our university. I'm the only candidate in that 5-week training workshop, and I'm doing that as well as my coursework. I've worked hand in hand alongside our student union executive this year. I've been in their campaigns, I've taken part, I've attended things, even though I didn't necessarily have a position within the student union. I was just an angry student that's seen how things had gone. And I've had that student experience. I've seen, the times when we didn't have funding, the times when we didn't have our supports. I myself had that, severe financial hardships in the years prior to this, and, had to move home. I've lost money. And I myself, as a student being active, have raised money for our students and for our different campaigns and for our student nurses. I've gone out of my way to try and make the change and help introduce change in this university. And I know that I can. Then the other aspect is speaking on academic councils and boards and being there as a willing and an active voice. Well, I'm already doing that.
Your time is going to an end, Nasa.
Okay.
Thank you, Nasa. We now move to Clodagh Mcgivern. I'd like to give you the same time and opportunity to introduce yourself to the people here.
Sorry, it wasn't letting me unmute there for a second, but hi everyone, my name is Cody Mcgivern. I'm a final year law student and I decided to run for the Vice President Education Officer position because, the same as Nessa, I've seen all of the hardships that students had to go through this year. I've spoke to multiple members of the executive committee. I've heard the struggles that were coming towards them regularly. I have heard firsthand as well, listening to my friends, the struggles that they faced this year. I've been active in the Students' Union for 2 years. I was elected the convener of Business, Public Policy and Law in second year and re-elected again in third year. I would have loved to have been on it again this year, but I just wanted to give someone else the chance to experience the Students' Union and what you can do to change a student's life and make their life a little bit easier. Big things that I want to work on really next year is just making education more accessible for students. The university let down the student body this year. There's an awful lot more that they could have done to help students, and they just neglected them. They weren't even communicating with students properly, and these are all things that really need to be changed for next year. And I personally think that I'm the perfect candidate to do so. I've already sat on meetings, I've hosted meetings, I've sat on councils, I know exactly how the Students' Union operates, I know where to go to get stuff done. One thing that I think about myself, as I have the experience of being on the Students' Union, the foundation of NUIG is very rocky at the minute. That's fair to say. And I don't think that we should go into another academic year with the same problems. We have 3 months in the summer to fix a lot of issues. And personally, for me, being on the Students' Union, I know how things are done, and I feel like I won't need as much time adapting to the role, and I could start fixing things an awful lot quicker. Big thing for me as well is just I'm a very approachable person. I'm very able to communicate with people. I'm open-minded. I'm a listener. Anyone can come to me about issues and I'll be there to listen to them and try my utmost best to fix the problems for them. I mightn't be able to fix it, but I'll do everything in my power just to make it a little bit better for them. And I promise that I will bend over backwards to do so. And one thing that I want to do next year is I want to work so closely with the conveners and the class reps, because at the end of the day, the class reps are the backbone to the student body. We don't know what's happening if it isn't for them. So we need to be communicating with them, communicating with the student body. We need to be communicating with the societies, the clubs, because it builds this community that is so necessary to find out exactly what needs to be done. I'm an outspoken person, I'm loud, I can get stuff done, and I feel like I'm the perfect person to go forward in this role. Another thing is, there's the regular things that go on with students with their modules, trying to change course, issues with fees. Susie, I'm the perfect person that can guide someone along the way with that. And I'm just always going to make the students my
main time has come to an end, Clodagh. Thank you very much. We now move to Connell Mcallick, excuse me, Connell, if Connell can be unmuted there.
Hi, my name is Connell Mccallick. I'm a fourth-year mechanical engineering student from Galway, and my pronouns are he, him. After consulting with students, I've come up with 7 main points for my campaign to eliminate the cost of education, including tuition fees, printing, parking, etc., to get more studies places for students, including PCs, especially in the engineering building, and more library time, to improve SU democracy by making it easier for members of the student body to initiate referenda, to teach students how to organise by teaching them how to stand up to the landlord or their boss, by having less exam-focused assessment and instead having more continuous assessment, and having that in such a way as the deadlines aren't on top of each other, basically. To lift the Christmas Day ban, and during that day to have a half-price day in Salt to ensure the students stay on campus and out of trouble, and to make NUIG a truly bilingual campus. No Cur Béim ar Hangagus OEG Mar Neil Service August modules, services and modules aren't available through Irish. And if we say we're a bilingual campus, but we don't have them available in both languages, we're just joking with ourselves, really. I'm a committed activist. I have stood on the picket line with the Devon's workers day in, day out for over a year. I was involved in the campaign to stop the racist Noel Larkin becoming mayor of Galway City. I'm involved in the Stop Seat Ireland campaign. I'm involved in the Cashew-led campaign to get rent refunds for students. I'm involved in the NUIG welfare crew. I'm involved in the NUIG sustainability group. I was involved on the Freeze the Fort in the campus in 2020, where we successfully fought against NUIG's attempts to increase accommodation fees, and we were successful. I have been here before. I can add a new impetus of exterior activism. I don't have SU experience, but I have experience outside with activism. I was that disillusioned student who might not vote on Thursday for 2 years, and through societies and through sleeping out on the quad to fight for students' rights, I got involved. And I feel like we can get more students involved by improving the democracy of the union and being ambitious. I am the only candidate who has committed in their manifesto to abolish repeat fees as opposed to merely reducing them. I am the only candidate to release a Feroga Oscailga or a manifesto in Irish so far. I feel like I am the student who can lead, I'm the ordinary student who can lead a mass movement of students to fight against the college. I'm someone who can be a thorn in the side of the university all year long. And I am the best candidate for this role. So please vote for Connell Mccallick for education on April 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Connell. We move now along to the questions, and we will be working through the questions in different orders, hopefully to try and balance things out as we move along. We'll do our best to keep that in a nice order. The first question in this case will be going to Nasa Gorl. If Nasa can, I can get her unmuted there. Welcome, Nasa. And first question for Nasa: how do you plan to create a more inclusive learning environment?
Well, I've already started that plan. I'm the only candidate that actually applied to the OER grant scheme, and my grant application plan has actually been approved to go to phase 2. So I'm actually already implementing change and on the road to doing that. I'm also the only candidate to actually be attending the UDL 5-week training workshop, and I've attended so much more. Accessibility inclusivity is about creating more access, more fair work available to students. I'm the only candidate that spoke at USI Hustings, and I spoke on motions for digital and distance learning. I spoke on motions for lecture record. I've been here and I've done that. I've been vocal online, and I've done everything I can in my power to amplify the struggles of the students. I wrote articles on the library being closed and how that is not okay and how students need access to library. I will make sure that we have more seating available, we have more study spaces available. I will push for 24-hour library service. I will do absolutely everything in my power to ensure that we have more open and accessible education at NUI Galway. And that comes down to as well, we need better supports for students with disabilities. It's absolutely not fair that currently the lift on the campus outside the library isn't working, and that's so horrible for students. We need to realize that there are so many students in this campus, so many students in this community who need so much support. There's going to be upwards of 7,000 students next year who do not know Galway. So I'm planning to implement a Get to Know Galway guide and a Get to Know Galway experience to ensure that all students know Galway, feel safe in Galway, can have the crack and just, get used to the campus, get used to the city as soon as possible.
Your time is coming to an end.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you, Nasa. In this instance, I'll be talking to Connell next. And Connell, the question is the same for you. I'll read it out again. How do you plan to create a more inclusive learning environment?
Well, I think we need to make NUIG a safe space for all students. We need to make it accessible for everyone. We need to have disability supports. We need to make sure the whole campus is accessible. We need to have free pronouns badges for all students and to have third gender option in all forms. I think a big part of the problem as well is students don't have time to take part in SU democracy. I haven't been able to go to USI Hustings or anything like that because I'm trying to do my final year project in mechanical engineering. So I think we need to for voting, even when I was voting, I didn't have time because I was in and out between lectures. In my manifesto, I plan to have a festival and vote on voting day to allow students to entice students to come on campus to have no classes so they're able to actually go and vote and take part in democracy, and to have changed for upbringing of referenda so students can initiate referenda with only 100 signatures and without having to go to SU Council. I think we need to get students more involved in the union, and that will make it a more inclusive place for everyone.
Sorry, thank you, Connell. I would now move to Cody Mcgivern, and the same question for you, Cody Mcgivern, will be how do you plan to create a more inclusive learning environment?
So obviously, it's so important that everyone does feel included in NUI Galway, and I do feel like education is more than academics at the end of the day, and we really need to be educating students more on the other cultures and the diversity that exists in the city. It's growing and it's beautiful, and it's an amazing thing that we have all these different groups of people that are living in Galway and are coming to college in Galway. So just having more events and stuff that can really bring people together. And also with inclusivity, we need to be able to make sure that education is fair, equal, accessible for all. And I found this year some students didn't have the privilege of being able to move up. I'm trying to start from the ground and fix the small things. I know myself that there are some people that had to get me to go to the library and take pictures of their notes because lecturers were giving them materials that weren't available online through the website. So just making sure that everyone can be catered to, having extended library hours. You only have, let's say 25% of people are able to fill the library at a time. We need to extend those hours to make sure that there's a better flow of students being able to get through. Coming up to exam time, 24-hour access to the reading room. We need more disability supports. I would love to explore the opportunity of the university employing an educational assessor themselves to try and reduce the cost that's associated with getting assessed. This will make it so much easier for students to be able to access their education.
Your time is coming to an end. Thank you, Clodagh. I appreciate that. We're moving now to the second question of the questions for the VPs for Education. If you've just joined, we're speaking to Nasa Gorrell, Cody Mcgivern and Connell Mccallick. In this instance, I'm going to be speaking to Connell first, and the question that will be going to Connell first in this case is, what do you foresee being the biggest challenge for students next year, having just adapted to a year of online learning, and what's the number one educational issue that needs to be addressed in their term?
I feel like the biggest issue for students is going to be the ability to afford education. We have so many cost barriers to education. It's supposed to be a human right, really, but we're charging people, we're forcing people out of education because they can't afford it. Where there's parking, printing, tuition, levy, commuting, food. I have a raft of policies I want to fight to implement on this, scrapping repeat fees, which I think is very important, having free resits as well, fighting for restructurings of rents and for rent caps for students. And like, I will sit out on the quad again if I need to if the university try to increase rent again. Fight for the rights of students who live in digs. They have nothing really. And as well, another thing I was told by a member of my campaign team was to subsidize the cost of textbooks, because they can be very expensive, and even like having them online and available for students. Having food on campus is affordable. I know in the engineering canteen in Zinc, the prices are astronomical, and not even just the prices, all the chairs are put up, the microwave is switched off at 5 o'clock, so anyone on campus after that can't eat. Printing costs, parking costs, and like having a parity in costs for all students as well. Like international students have massive costs of education, massive tuition fees compared to everyone else, and like 3,000 is enough as it is. Like, we should be fighting to abolish tuition fees for everyone. And then there's postgrad workers on top of that who are working on campus and they do not get paid at their collectively bargained rate. I think
your time is coming to an end, Connell.
Okay, it's just that it's very important that they get paid for their work.
Thank you, Connell. The same question will now be going to Clodagh Mcgivern. I'm going to reread the question for you, Clodagh, as well. What do you foresee being the biggest challenge for students next year, having just adapted to a year of online learning, and what's the #1 educational issue that needs to be addressed in their term?
So accessibility again. One thing that I want to secure is that online lectures will be recorded, put on Blackboard for students. I know cost is a big, huge issue for students, and it can be very difficult to be able to afford the tuition fee and afford rent on top of that. So I feel like if we put a plan in place that lectures can be online for students if they wish, because some students have sensory issues as well and they actually prefer the online learning, this could eliminate the cost for students as well. Another big thing is, you know, there needs to be better communication, and students, I want to set in plan a place where there's going to be a 48-hour cancellation policy, because we're going to have blended learning next year, and that's the reality of it. So lecturers and like can't cancel a half an hour before it's meant to start, because we have to look at commuting students as well, that they have to be able to access their education and not have these barriers in place. Some students might be putting down deposits for hostels and then be told that the lab is cancelled. It's just not acceptable at all. Another big thing is communication. You know, we need to have the exam timetables out earlier for students. It's so important. It can be really stressful, and I want to make sure that the mental health services are accessible to all the students as well. Have them online too. You know, it's just, we're going to have to adapt to this lifestyle of being in campus and not, and even we need the student body to have more intercommunication as well. And I hope to do this as well by having more events and stuff next year, that they can feel a sense of belonging. And yeah, can't.
If you're happy with your answer, you were just on time there anyway, Clodagh. Thank you very much. We now move to Nasa Gorl, and it will be the same question for you. What do you foresee being the biggest challenge for students next year, having just adapted to a year of online learning, and what's the #1 educational issue that needs to be addressed in their term?
Yeah, so this question would fall under 3 major headlines in my manifesto. So that being student fees of finance, accessibility, and belonging. So, you know, what we do know with this year that we've just had is that our education is far more accessible than our university lets us know. We are very well equipped in our universities and our auditoriums to have recorded lectures, to have online lectures, to keep that continued and keep that going. So I will absolutely support digital and distance learning and push for this in policy. Students that need to stay home, students that can't afford to move down, like myself and my family, we live in Donegal, so either I commute or I rent. You know, and rent right now is absolutely inaccessible. We need to fight against that as well. We need to absolutely ensure that students can continue to live at home if they choose to do so. You know, there's students who have underlying health conditions and students who just may not be comfortable going back to campus anymore. They need to be able to have that choice, to have those supports online and ready available. As well, we are going to have somewhat of 7,000 students, including international students, part-time students, Shannon College students, everybody who do not know the campus, who do not know Galway, who do not know the services already available to them. I am one person that did not know of most of the services. I'm one person that did not know of much to do with the Students' Union until, you know, recent years. So I intend to develop a guidebook which is readily available, readily readily accessible for all students to see all of the services that are already there for them and to be able to support them. As well, we need to widen the gaps for who can, you know, apply to the assistance funds for funding for their education, because it is so substandard. We need to push against Susie as well to ensure that that reform goes through. There's so much we need to do, and
Your
there's
time has come to an end, Nasa. Thank you very much, Nasa. At this point, I am going to hand over to Emma at this point to continue the questions from here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Owen, and well done to all the candidates. Some really strong answers there, so fair play to you all. So my first question is, how do you plan to support the incoming second years? Because we know they've had a very difficult year this year. So how do you plan to support not just the undergrads, but also the postgrads who will be starting the year with no on-campus experience? Sorry. And I think we are going to Clodagh first.
Sorry, I am unmuted. It's going to be very difficult next year when we're going to have so many people that will be on campus for the first time. And a great way that I thought that we could deal with this is setting up virtual tours online for students and having those saved onto the NUIG SU website. Because I know myself, you go to orientation week and you can forget what's told to you. So having those videos readily available that you can reference throughout the year in case you need a refresh and a restart of what needs to go on. Another thing is, I learned that postgrads don't even have their own orientation week, and that's just not acceptable. They need to feel like they're included. There's some students that are postgrads that have never stepped foot in NUI Galway before because they would have did their degree somewhere else. So just having more of an orientation style thing to really introduce them into the community of NUI Galway. Another thing is then having the events in place for them and just educating them more on what needs to, like what they can avail of, the supports that are there, the facilities that are there that they can use and how they use it. It's all so important and so necessary. And even having more workshops in like academic integrity, writing, schooling, education, employability, to really show them how to do things. Because, you know, it's all well and good thinking that students know what to do, but at the end of the day, you do need to kind of spell it out black and white for people as well, because, you know, you need to just communicate things a lot better. It's just so important that you are saying it exactly what it is.
Great. Thank you, Clodagh. So Nessa, the same question to you. How do you plan to support the incoming second year undergrads and postgrads that will be starting the year with no on-campus experience?
Yeah, so for me, a lot of my supports and a lot of my friends I've made this year have been our first years who have, you know, had to transition online. I actually wrote an article and heard from students on how that was, and a lot of them have told me that they've experienced severe burnout, severe lack of motivation, and not really feeling a part of the student community. And that is something that we really need to develop. And I will absolutely hear and work with those students I've already spoken to and set up a student working groups, establish different commitments and different things that we can do to implement change and absolutely support those undergrad students. They have already been so great online and already helped us build such a community with like the likes of Hump Day Hooley. I myself only attended a few because obviously I was planning for this, which took up a lot of my time, but they will be so fundamental to the year going forward. So, you know, like I've already mentioned, my Get to Know Galway guide and my Get to Know Galway experience, I'd love to establish a working group to have their opinion, have more fun events running in orientation week as well for postgrads. And just so everybody is aware, at the minute, it looks like we have close to 1,800 postgrads, research students, and who are working in the college who do not have sufficient payment, and a lot of them who are not being paid. So just so you're aware, a lot of your tutors and your teachers at the minute are not being paid. So we need to absolutely work with them. It is so unfair. I would love to set up work with the Postgrad Workers Alliance to ensure that they get more supports. They have a reform and they have a working group, but nothing has come of it. The university have set it up that they are not got any success so far. I've also written an article on that. I think it is yet to be published, but yeah, we absolutely need to push for them and voice for them. We need to, my Get to Know Galway guide and experience will go as far as the postgrads, like it'll include everybody, include every experience, every background, every
time is going to end, Nasa.
But stand for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Nessa. And finally, Connell, so same question to you. How do you plan to support the incoming second year undergrads and postgrads that will be starting the year with no on-campus experience?
Well, to start off with the second part of the question, as I said earlier, postgrads, a lot of postgrads on campus are not getting paid, and a lot of other postgrads are not getting paid the collectively bargained rate. So we have to fight with them. We have to fight with the PGWA on campus to ensure that they get their collectively bargained rate of pay. And we need to build solidarity networks between postgrads on campus. We need to get postgrads more integrated in the students' union. Regarding second year students, I feel like we have to take the best bits out of this year and ensure that they're transferred over to next year. Things like the Hump Day Hoolie, things like recorded lectures, we need to ease second years into the way of things. They're going to be in a similar position to the first years next year. It'll almost be like having two sets of first years for the first time. And we need to show them how college life works. We need to get them, they seem to be, in credit to this year's first years, they seem to be very involved. I think they've been a major contributing factor to the increased engagement in the SU. So we need to ensure that these students continue within the SU and continue to fight for change on campus. And as part of that, I want to teach students how to organize, to teach not just second years, but all students how to stand up to their landlord or their boss. I want to show students how SU Council really works, show students how to make motions, because technically all students are allowed to go, but most students who aren't class reps.
Your time is coming to an end, Connell.
Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. And we're at the stage now where, thank you, Emma. Hopefully I didn't interject too early there, but we're moving to summation for all the candidates for education at this point. We'll be moving in a different order as usual, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to give us their summation. And as always, thanks to the people who've come along to take part in the hustings as well. There's a lot of viewers there. We appreciate it. So the summations will begin with Cody Mcgivern. Cody, if you'd like to start now, I'll just get you unmuted.
So throughout my whole campaign, I've tried to remain as pragmatic as possible. It's always been a student first agenda for me. I'm not trying to push my own, agendas. At the end of the day, I'm just here to listen to you, amplify your voice, and do everything in my power to help you. Big things, if you vote me in, I'm going to work on accessibility for the student body in general, mental health, disability supports. I do want to bring more communication on campus. I want every student to feel like they're included. I just want to deal with very basic stuff, because at the end of the day, the foundation of NUIG is extremely rocky at the minute, and you don't build a house on poor foundation. And I just feel like there's little simple things that need to be fixed before we start, doing these huge things. And again, I want to leave room to talk to ye, the students, next year. At the end of the day, you're my main priority, and I'm going to do everything in my power to look after you. I want everyone to be included. Even mature students, they can be forgotten about sometimes, and having lovely incentives in place to look after them. I'm just trying to be very practical in my approach, but I am ambitious. I am going to be the voice for ye. So I just think that you should vote for me. I'm equal, I'm fair. I'm going to do everything in my power. I'm a good listener. I'm a shoulder that you can cry on if needs be, if you're finding everything so difficult and overwhelming in education. I'm just trying to be really
time is coming to
realistic.
An end. Thank you very much, Clodagh. We are now moving along to our next summation, and that will be with Connell Mccallick. Connell, I'll get you unmuted there, and you can begin your summation. You have 90 seconds also.
I think the most important part of this election is that we need to elect activists to the SU. We need to elect people who are ambitious, people who won't give the college a minute of peace, people who will be a leader there to enable, to push the campaigns of students. to push for greater democracy within the union, to allow greater grassroots voice in the union, so that ordinary students can be heard. We need people who will fight the government for lower tuition fees or no tuition fees at all for a publicly funded higher education system. We need students who will make the campus more accessible. We need people in the student union who will take the focus away from this archaic view of exams at the end of the year instead of continuous assessment. We need activists on the SU who will teach students how to organise, who will make An Gaeilge a priority, so that we have services, we have modules available through Gaeilge, and that we have Rangan Gaeilge, Sarah Nashka, free Irish classes. And I would implore everyone who wants such an activist elected to their SU to vote Connell Mccallick #1 for education on Thursday, 22nd of April. Thank you.
You're muted, Owen.
Excuse me, I've done it again. I was muted. Thank you, Connell Mccallick. I appreciate your contribution. We're now moving to Nasa Garl for your summation. You also have 90 seconds.
So guys, the reality is I am just another student who had the normal student experience. In first year, second year, I went out, I had the crack, I messed around, then we came into pandemic and things got serious. Over the past year or so, I have literally been so angry at our university, at our government, at the realization of how terrible things have become in the last 10 years with the severe lack of funding. Literally the funding per student in every higher education institution is in half. It has been halved. I do not stand for this. It does not sit well with me, and I will not be an education officer who lets our students suffer. I will not let that happen at all. I am here and I will be vocal and I will shout for every single one of you. You may not come across these right now, but I was very nervous and very anxious for this call. But the reality is I will be able to sit here in these board meetings. I will be able to sit here with the administration of our university and argue for you and speak for you and listen to you. And I will do everything in my power for you, like I am already doing. I am already being active. I have been active outside of college and inside of college. If you go to my Instagram, Nessa for Education, you will see my About Me posts and other posts with everything I have done. Literally in 2015, I got a FETAC level 6 with NUI Galway in community action and youth leadership and development. So I've been building my way forward as a leader. And I just want to leave this one note with you guys to remember on NUI Galway and how they are and all their funding and everything. This is a message from Annie Hoey, which I referenced earlier in our Flirt FM call. How dare they play with our future? How dare they toy with our opportunities? And how dare they play the sympathy card that they can't afford it? They can, and I will be here to stick it to them, and I will be here to ensure that every student has their
time. Thank you, Nasa Gorl. Your time was just up there. Sorry for calling that. That concludes our discussions and hustings for the VPs for Education. I'd like to thank all three candidates for the time that they've given to this. We'll be moving now to the VPs for Welfare and Equality. The three people running for this position are Cora Clark, Erin Mcintyre and Conor McWalters. We'll have them up on screen shortly. I know the people are working in the background and we can see people appearing. The format will be very, very similar to the format that we worked with. I will be leading questions in various orders, but we'll be beginning with giving each candidate a chance to introduce themselves. The time limits, as always, I'll be calling the time limits as soon as I manage to unmute myself, but you'll probably be able to tell by my facial expression, if anything, that the time is coming to an end. So without further ado, I would like to give all three candidates the opportunity to introduce themselves to everybody who's tuned into the call this evening. We will be starting with Cora Clark today. Cora, if you'd like to take the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Cora Clark and my pronouns are she, her. I am from Galway and I am currently in my second year of History and Globalization Studies here at NUIG. I'm incredibly passionate about both welfare and equality issues in our university community, and I want to make NUIG a welcoming and safe environment for students of all different backgrounds, races, religions, sexualities, etc., to create a strong and diverse student body. I decided to run for this role because I've experienced how difficult university can be when your welfare is compromised, whether that is due to mental health issues, student poverty, homelessness, or any other number of things that students face every day. And now I feel I am very lucky and privileged to be in a position to help other students who might be struggling. My passion and commitment to welfare and equality issues has only been exacerbated in the last year, where we have seen third level students are so forgotten about and left behind, be that by the university or the government. I want to advocate for and support students to give them the best university experience possible. Since deciding to run for the election back in November, I've attended so many different workshops and training events that have prepared me for the role, like a head's disability awareness training, anti-racism workshops, and the Chasseurs bystander intervention training, just to name a few. And I began writing my manifesto by consulting with the general student body, SU representatives, and students involved at clubs, societies, class reps to talk about the issues facing students and to get feedback and suggestions from them. I also circulated a survey about inequality in NUIG to which people could respond to anonymously to get a fair idea of the real and current issues that students are facing. And that'll be all.
Thank you, Cora Clark. We are now going to be moving to Erin Mcinseer. Erin, if you'd like to take the opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hi, Cora. It's Misha Aaron. I'm Aaron. Nice to meet you. I've been with the union since 2018, so that makes me the only candidate here with experience in a role such as this. The last 2 years I've spent as Ibsa McGregor, but more than just being student union representative and that, I'm a student just like everybody else. I understand the struggles that students face these days, especially when it comes to mental health and housing issues. I myself am forced to live in Galway as there's actually not the space for me at home. I sleep on a sofa at home. So just in terms of somebody who's realistic in their approach to what they can do and somebody who understands the difficulties that students are going through, I'm the person who's for that. Over my last few years, I've done more than just sit in boardrooms. I've done direct action on the ground, such as stopping the 4% rent increase on campus just before the pandemic broke out, as well as also reopening Cafe in Gregor. But I'm more than just a mouthpiece. I can go out there and I can sit in the boardrooms with university management. This year, I've worked on setting out a 5-year strategic plan with the university for the Irish language to increase availability to all students across the college, as opposed to just those few who choose to study the language. It's also something that I've been very passionate on this year, an increase in accessibility to the Irish language, out past the middle class, as it's saying now at the moment, and making it accessible to all those from working class backgrounds, those who are international students, and making Irish language and culture the centre focus point of our university experience, because that's where it is that pulls us all together. We all live here in Galway. We all share in the same common identity as people who live in Galway and students of NUIG. And it's just about bringing what it is that makes us all one out in students, really.
Thank you, Erin. We're now going to move into Conor McWalters, and the same opportunity to you. You have 90 seconds to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Owen, for moderating this event. And look, I suppose my view on things is that I think that there's a need for change. I should have probably introduced myself. First name is Conor McWalters, final year student here in NUIG. I've been here for 4 years, not been part of the societies and student union like certain individuals here, but I think that my outside experience is very important. I think I can represent all students effectively. There are 20,000 students approximately in NUIG, only 2,000 of them vote. I am one of those 18,000 who do not vote. I represent those who don't vote, who never felt represented, and those who feel that representation is lacking. I want to liaise with everybody that I can possibly liaise with in a way that will allow us to build a better NUIG for all students. As everyone knows, hopefully, who's been following my campaign, I'm not somebody for vast political speeches nor anything politically motivated. My views are students only. That's all I care about is the student first agenda, putting students first. I don't have any friends in the student union. I'm not part of any cliques, nothing like that. I don't have anybody to keep happy except the students, and that's who I'll be working on behalf of. I believe very strongly in disability rights, mental health, exam reform, and student first agenda and postgraduate reform also. Things that are realistic, progressive changes that are realistic and can represent all students equally and fairly, and that's all that I'm concerned with. Thank you.
Thank you, Conor. And I suppose for the listeners out there and the people on the call, we are moving now to the questioning for the VPs for Welfare and Equality. And we will be starting again with Cora Clark. Cora, the first question is going to you, and the question you will be beginning with is, what one priority do you have for supporting students who've now gone through a year of online learning?
So for students who have, all of us who've been through online learning, I think the transition back to campus is going to be really, really difficult. And one of my main priorities is looking after students' mental health and well-being, because a lot of people moved home, had a significant change of circumstances during the pandemic, whether that be their living situation, their employment situation, they might have lost a loved one. There's so many different aspects to the pandemic that have changed the way we live. So I think transitioning back to on-campus learning is going to be really difficult. And one of my main priorities is making sure students feel safe and welcome on campus and have those social connections that, you know, people are everything and friendships are so important, and college is such an amazing chance to make those friendships. And so many people might have lost out, or friendships might have died in the last year just because you weren't seeing them. And I think it's really, really important that we provide events and forums for people to make those connections, and so as their well-being and mental health does not suffer.
Thank you very much, Cora. We'll be now moving to Erin Mcintyre with the same question. I'll repeat the question for you, Erin, also. The question is, what one priority do you have for supporting students who've now gone through a year of online learning?
Well, I suppose from a welfare aspect, I think the most important thing to make sure is that the welfare of students is being looked after. So that's why the main pointer I have in my manifesto is around increasing mental and physical health supports for students. So we'd be doing this through weekly mental health events called Martin and Marathon to be happening on a Tuesday, Mental Health Tuesdays for those around Gregory. And this is based off the success of the Mental Health Mondays initiative, which was run a few years ago, which got the union out of the office, out talking to people on the ground, just finding out what's going on with them and just being that friendly face. And this is a great opportunity for us to get the welfare crew more involved with the work that we're doing, as that's a very big part of what the welfare officer's role is, and ensuring that we're creating these places that students can feel empowered to come and create their own sense of community, even if it is only once a week. Also, as well as that, I'd like to have monthly speed friending events to help with loneliness and isolation. I'm sure it's something that we're all feeling these days, especially with how disconnected we all feel with coronavirus. But as well as that, I think something that we've all came to really appreciate is our physical well-being and how important it is to just go out for something as simple as a walk. It's not always about in crisis interventions and all, because sometimes it's just about helping people to get up out of bed in the morning, because I've been that student with my mental health, not able to get up out of bed in the morning to go down to my lecture. Oh Jesus, another assignment to do. We've all been there, but something as simple as going out for a walk can be very helpful. And that's something that I've worked on this year with the walking talks before we got closed down with the restrictions, bringing students out so that they can talk to one another and just have that opportunity to meet people face to face, even with the current difficulties that we're facing at the moment.
Mute on.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you, Erin Mcintyre. We now move to Connor McWalters, and Connor, I'll repeat the question for you also. What one priority do they have for supporting students now that they've gone through a year of online learning?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about it that there's a real challenge ahead of everyone. Concern is obviously if I were to be elected, just simply because of the fact that we've kind of become used to isolation and become used to not interacting, and we've become used to a way of learning which is online. So I think it's already been mentioned by one of the education officers to do blended learning, and I think that'll be important. But I think that just for all the students coming back to acclimatise back on the campus, it'll be a task, and I'd hope to be the person who could aid that effectively. I know that, for example, there's obviously nearly almost like 2 sets of first years next year, and there could be 2 sets of postgrads new to campus in the sense that they haven't been here before, so they need orientation. They need to be shown around. They need to know how the college works, and I'd be happy to be that person who could do that for them. It's just, for me, welfare is just all about making things easier for students, and obviously equality is about treating everybody the same and treating them respectfully. I know that I can deliver that, and I'd hope that everybody else can see that too. But yeah, look, in summary, it's obviously all to do with supporting these students when they come back after a difficult year, and just making it a pleasant experience for them.
Thank you very much, Connor McWalters. We're now going to move on to question 2, and question 2 is going to Erin Mcinseer first. Erin, the question we'll be asking you this time is, what is a support you would like to see brought in for next year?
The support I'd like to see brought in for next year, well, a lot of the stuff that I'd like to see brought in will be focusing around me themed mental health months. So I'd like to bring out more peer support and more peer training. I'm sure, as we're all aware, the counselling service could always need doing up, and so could mental health services in general. But I think it's important to have short-term, specific, manageable, achievable and realistic time-bound goals. There we go. But it's very important that we're encouraging students and empowering students to know what to do if somebody comes with them with issues, and empower them to be good for their own mental health. As well as that, I'd like to see extra support being brought in for the Disability Support Service. I myself am registered with the DSS, and I had to get an educational assessment while I was in college, but there was a €400 price tag attached onto it. I didn't call them back up, and that really since I've gotten the assessment, it's really helped with my education, but I think it's an awful shame that you have to jump in through hoops to get financial assistance for it. So I'd be very keen that to be an educational psychologist employed by the university that will be taking these matters internally, as opposed to them having to be privatised. As well as that, I'd like to see more physical health support, as I've already said. That would be about increasing the amount of contraception and all that there is available from the union, as well as active consent classes, drugs and alcohol awareness, and just providing the tools to students to help themselves. I'm not the be all and end all. I'm not the know it all. I'm only here to represent you and empower you to be the best that you can be. That's all my role is: welfare and equality, and ensuring that the students have the tools to provide that.
You're on mute, Owen.
Sorry, as usual, and I apologize for my technical mess ups. But Erin, thank you. That was your time. Also, you probably called the panic on my face there. We'll now move on to Connor McWalters with the same question. I'll repeat the question for you also, Connor. Connor, the question is, what is the support you would like to see brought in for the next year?
Yeah, well, look, can you hear me? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so look, next year is going to be challenging, as I've already touched upon, and obviously everybody else has too. I think there needs to be more work to do with disability rights on campus. I think that the library's crying out for an expansion to the AT area for a long time, and I think that the disabled community on campus have been left behind and high and dry for a long time. That'll be one specific one. As everybody who's obviously seen my campaign knows, it's just about working together, working with students. Next year obviously is going to be a challenge, and just doing our best that we can do. I want to work with the class reps, societies, clubs, everybody like that there, because all these people are fundamental to student welfare. And I feel that the societies need to be looked after as well, obviously funding, whatever else. And that's important to me. So yeah, look, it's just about next year and the years that follow that. Hopefully we can leave a good imprint and encourage students to seek the resources that are available. I can't be the answer to everything, but I can point you in the right direction, I'm sure, and that's all that I can do for you.
Thank you, Connor McWalters. And now we move to Cora Clark with the same question. Cora, I'll repeat the question for you also. Cora, what is a support you would like to see brought in for next year?
Okay, so one thing that I think is really, really important for the coming year is to help economically vulnerable students. And the reason that that is particularly important this year is that the experience we've had with the pandemic and the economic destruction that has brought, so many students not being able to get the pandemic employment payment, so many losing their jobs in the hospitality sector. We're all economically vulnerable students. It's so applicable. We are all that fall under that category, and I think it's really important that we bring in more supports. Those supports would be extra funding, reform of SUSI, but specifically on the welfare aspect, the credit is the word I'm looking for. Credit on the SU cards to help students buy food, buy supplies, buy everything that they need to survive, because there's so many students that are going to suffer in the coming year financially.
Thank you very much. And Cora Clark. And for the next question, I will be handing over to Roisin McLaughlin, the current Welfare and Equality Officer. So I will mute out and hand over to Roisin at this point.
Gurmaga own agus gurmaga gachdaine is chatting you. So just a trigger warning and that there will be mention of sexual harassment. So I'll just put my thumbs up when I'm finished talking. So my question to each of the welfare candidates is, obviously the welfare and equality remit is a very heavy remit and it deals with a lot of issues. One of the biggest issues would be disclosure and sexual harassment. So my question is, what have you done to get this role in terms of consent education and activism? Especially, my question is especially in regards to image-based sexual abuse. What have you done and what are your plans?
First is Connor, then Cora, then Erin.
Am I on? I'm good to go. Yeah, look, firstly, I'd just say it's a bit strange to have the vice president who's running for the president position ask me a question when they're friends with Cora Clark, who I'm currently up against. I find that extremely weird. I would like to be informed beforehand. For all we know, you've told Cora that, the answer to this question or whatever. Secondly, yeah, look, I have never associated with sexual harassers. I'm not friends with any. I've never done anything like that. I hope you can say the same. I want to just work with students, look after them, do the best that I can, and that's all that I'll ever do. I look forward to taking the trainings that are ahead, and that's it. Thanks, Roisin, and hopefully, maybe you can take that on board.
The question wasn't at me. It's just that just happens every year. I think anyone here that's been involved with the union and representing students would.
Yeah, but I just find it strange. I just find it extremely strange. I really do.
We'll not.
I find that extremely strange.
Where the debate wouldn't be going to be, we would give each person opportunity to answer the question and move on to give the next person opportunity to answer a question and carry it on. So, Roisin, if you can pose the same question to Cora, please.
Yeah, the question was, what have you done in regards to consent and image-based sexual abuse campaigning, and what are your plans if elected? She's on mute.
Thank you. So I'm just going to go ahead and answer the question. But so what I've done, I attended the online national rally at the end of last year, and I attended the image-based sexual assault workshop that took place on Shag Week. One of the things I'd really like to do is to create a survivor support group on campus. So as there is a support system for students that is really reliable and very close to the issue. Another thing I would like to do is to review the university policies on reporting sexual misconduct, because I think it's really important that we review and improve upon them. By using survivor experiences, and also by using expert groups like the Galway Rape Crisis Centre to shape these new policies.
Where Erin, you're next. The question was, what have you done in regards to consent and IBSA activism, and what do you plan to do?
Well, regarding the consent, I actually took part in a protest in Dublin. It was to reform laws surrounding sexual assault cases in court. I'm sure as people may be aware, they're not the most appropriate now at the moment, and it can be very demeaning for people and forcing them to relive their past trauma. So I actually attended that protest before. As well as that, I think a lot of it is about being a compassionate person, and that I really do think that I am. I can talk to anybody, and anybody can come and talk to me. And if anybody feels like they can't call me out, and I would sit down, we'll have a conversation about it. But as well as that, one of the things that I have mentioned in my manifesto is an increase in mental health supports for those who are survivors of sexual assault on campus. I've been made aware that the counselling unit at the moment doesn't have any special allowances for those who have survived sexual assault. And that's something that I'd like to have brought in before the end of the year. The universities are working on active consent programs, and I'd love to increase how many people are in that in an appropriate manner with the active consent team that's already in NUIG at the moment. But as well, if they're putting money into training up students about active consent, they should be putting in money into adequate supports for those who are surviving sexual assault. It's not good enough that you go and after a certain amount of counselling sessions that you're forced to wait in another 12-month waiting list for an external organisation, when the university is sitting there with €260 million in reserve. They have more than enough money to be providing these extra supports for people, as well as providing extra training for everybody. And that's something that I'll be pushing for in the coming year.
Thank you, Aaron Mcinseer, and thank you, Roisin McLaughlin, for tabling the question also. We take our final question now for the VPs for Welfare and Equality. And the order I would suggest in this case is that it will start with Conor McWalters. The question for you this time, Conor, is Galway in a normal year has an accommodation crisis every year. How will you help to improve this?
We simply just have to work as a union together, empower students in ways and just simply to stand up to their landlords and work together. We can't obviously have the current rising rents, particularly on the student campus accommodations. It's obviously a problem. You know, off campus, there's not an awful lot we can do except protest. But obviously on campus, yeah, look, it's clear that the new builds that have taken place, like they're extortionate prices. They're not really accessible for most students. And like there was, I think it was a Goldcrest in the Westwood and all these places, like these are sky high prices and it's just not really acceptable for all students. I'd obviously work to support the students who need the help that they can possibly get. I know that there are hardship funds available and I encourage all students who could possibly need those to seek them. But yeah, look, money-wise, to do with rents and that, we just have to work together and stand up and stand together. Everybody, regardless of who they are or their current situation, that there's people who are struggling always more than us, and that's all you can possibly do is work hard to show that we will not be stood over and stand up to the expensive rents, and obviously they're constantly rising too. So that's what I would do.
Thank you very much, Conor McWalters. I'm now going to move to Aaron Mcinseer, and Aaron, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'll repeat the question for you also. The question is, Galway in a normal year has an accommodation crisis every year. How will you help improve this?
Oh, Jesus, the accommodation crisis, don't even get me started. I know myself, since coming to college now, I'm in my fourth year, I've spent nearly €20,000 on accommodation. And that's somebody who's on the Susie. My Susie just about would cover that if I spent absolutely every penny that I have. So I do know the struggles that are facing students out there, students who mightn't even be down as homeless because they have a home to go back to, but they're sleeping on a sofa in the sitting room. Do you know what I mean? I have worked on this before in the past. As I've already said, I took part in the Freeze the Fall protest before the pandemic broke out, in which we put a stop to a 4% rent increase on campus. But I think it's time to stop being reactive and for the Welfare and Equality Officer to finally enter into negotiations with university management to bring about on-campus rent reduction plan over the medium term. We know this is going to be a long-term battle, so it's about empowering students and ensuring that there's strong voices there to take the torch from me after I'm done in my term to continue on with this fight. As well as that, I want to push for the university property that's on Nuns Island at the moment to be turned into not-for-profit housing. It's not good enough that the university is propping up their profits with students who are struggling to find housing in college. And as well as that, I'd like to ensure that the financial aid is continued to be made available, increase awareness around it, and as well as that, ensure that financial assistance is available to international students. They pay a fortune as it is coming to Ireland, and then the extortionate rents that are on top of that. It'd be ensuring that these students can access financial support in the short term. And as well as that, on a more medium term footing, I'd like to push for levy reform in the coming year. I'll be voting now this Thursday, but however, I would like to amend this so that in the medium term, the Students' Union could be in the position to own their own housing scheme. But that would all be done, of course, with clubs and societies on board. But I think if we're talking about a student-led approach to these issues, it's not going to be done overnight. And it's time to start talking about how we now in 2021 can move this on so that students in 2026 aren't facing the same issues as us. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Aaron Mcinseer. And I'm going to move now to Cora Clark. The same question for you. I'll repeat the question for you, of course. Galway in a normal year has an accommodation crisis every year. How will you help improve this?
Well, I think it's really important to firstly say that, Rome wasn't built in a day, and I'm not going to personally, if elected, be able to solve the housing crisis that is such an issue across the entire island of Ireland. There are so many homeless people in Ireland. We all know that's an issue, but there's so many hidden homeless among the student cohort. And I think it's really, really important that we support them. So firstly, I would like to run workshops, campaigns, and kind of put like a pack of information together on tenants' rights. So students do have that legal basis and that confidence to stand up to their landlord, to know where they stand with him or her or them, sorry. And the second thing I would like to do is also lobby the university to create affordable housing, because even the university provided accommodation that we do have, which is not sufficient in number, it is also completely ridiculous in price. It's out of like most people's price range. It's completely ridiculous. So I definitely think the university need to provide affordable housing. And I would also like to see the government support students, because we've been really lacking in government support for the last year. And I think that the housing crisis is not something Galway specific at all. So I think it's an all nation approach that we need to take to this.
Thank you very much, Cora Clark. And having fielded 4 questions to the candidates, we're now going to move to some summation and give every candidate the opportunity to summate and give their final message to the people listening in out there who would like to thank for sticking with us at this point. There's a large number there, which we appreciate in attendance. The summation order will begin with Conor McWalters in this instance. So Conor, I will hand over to you at this point, and you can begin your summation in your own time.
Look, I suppose you can probably see I'm not the politician here or by any stretch. Like, I'm just a student who wants to represent all students, and that's all that I would ever do. No political parties, no private agendas, no political agendas, nothing of the sort. It's for students. That's all I care about. I care about some simple, realistic changes and reforms. Things like not having 2 exams on the one day. Things like not having a 4:30 and a 9:30 exam. Things like having student nurses not have to pay repeat fees, having worked on the front line during the pandemic. These are not the promises that some people might make. These are simple, realistic promises that I think I can deliver, and that's all that I would ever do, is try to deliver. As far as welfare and equality, I want to represent all students on campus equally. I want everybody to know that I am there for them if they need me. Anything that they could ever come to me with, I will be there and I will support them. I suppose I don't want to be seen as somebody who is trying to make my own stamp on things. This is a student-led approach with class reps, societies, clubs, everything like that there. And that's why I'm voting no in the referendum on the levy. I believe that student societies are so important and they need to be looked after, and I will look after them. I pledge to look after them, and I pledge that if they come to me, if I'm elected next year, I'll be there for them. And anybody who ever comes to me, doesn't matter what your opinions are of me, doesn't matter what you think of me, doesn't matter anything like that, I'm here for you because I'm putting students first. I don't have anybody to keep happy except students, and that's all that I will ever work towards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Conor McWalters. We now move to Erin Mcinseer. You also have 90 seconds to do your summation, and in your own time, you're welcome to start.
God, sorry. Yeah, so again, I'm the only candidate with experience here. I have 3 years on my belt already. I know what's possible in 12 months. That's why I have short-term and long-term goals. Things like a charitable fund so that we can set up a food fund for students and start providing vouchers for people to do that shopping. We have weekly mental health events, encouraging people to stay active. I want to push to make sure that there's academic flexibility for those who are doing sports for the college. As well as that, I'm a student who understands the struggles of housing, the struggles of feeling like you're not represented in the student union. And as well as that, I'd like to know all this talk of cliques tonight. I'm the only candidate here who isn't affiliated with any other person's candidacy. So if we want to start looking for who's the most independent voice, who's the most amount of experience and the know-how of how to do it, vote Aaron Mcintyre #1 on Thursday for the 22nd of April. Somebody who has experience fighting for the Irish language, fighting for housing rights, fighting for reproductive rights, and fighting for general equality as well, amongst other things. So vote for Aaron #1 on Thursday, 22nd of April. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Erin Mcinseer. And now we move to Cora Clark. You also have 90 seconds to do your summation, and you can begin in your own time as soon as the technology allows.
Okay, so firstly, I would like to say I'm not affiliated with any of the candidates. I would also like to say that I would never try to seek a question that's undemocratic, unfair, and just not something I would partake in. I know Erin lives with Roisin, and I trust that Erin and Roisin would also not partake in something like that. So anyways, moving on. I am really, really passionate about mental health, students with disabilities, LGBTQIA students, financing. Like, there's so many barriers to your well-being, and when your well-being is compromised, college is so much harder. I'm a student who's registered with the DSS. I'm a student in recipiency of Susie. These issues are really, really close to home for me. And I'm so, so passionate about making sure that students have the best possible college experience, that they aren't left behind struggling, that they don't need to go through that struggle to reach out, that we are there for them. We are reaching out to students. I think these issues are really, really important. And I would implore you to vote for me on the 22nd of April. Vote Cora for number 1 for welfare, because I care about students.
Thank you very much, Cora Clark. Thank you very much, Conor McWalters. And thank you very much, Erin Mcinseer. These are the 3 candidates you've been hearing from who are running for the position of VP for Welfare and Equality. With all candidates, do take your time to check out their manifestos and make your own decision on voting day. We're going to move now to the position of SU President. So thanks to those 3 candidates, and you're welcome to turn off your cameras and relax at this point. And we will get the candidates for the SU President position up on screen now shortly, if you just bear with us for a moment. There are 4 people running for this position: Simeon Burke, Joe Mee, Roisin McLaughlin, and James Pope. There will be, as always, there will be a chance for people to introduce themselves. There will be questions fielded, and after that, we'll move through the questions in rotating orders as we move along through the questions. And the format basically is identical to the format that we've experienced for the evening so far. So thanks first of all to all candidates for showing up on time and being here for the event. We have the 4 candidates, and today we'll be beginning with Simeon Burke. Simeon, you'll have first opportunity to introduce yourself to the people who have come along this evening. So I'm going to hand the mic to you, and you're welcome to begin in your own time.
Yeah, Owen, how are you? Well, the first thing I'd say is that just in relation to what happened there, I just want to make the point that Conor did make some very important points in relation to the Vice President for Welfare and Equality debate. And I did notice laughing. And I think that's very serious. And I would just say, if concerns are being raised, even tonight at these hustings, we need to make sure everybody is respected. So my name is Simeon Burke. I'm a final year civil law student from County Mayo, and I'm running for president of our students' union. And as many people know, I ran last year for Vice President for Welfare and Equality. And during that race, I warned people against voting for Roisin McLaughlin for Vice President for Welfare and Equality. I warned people against voting for candidates who support poster ripping, who support physical violence, and who think freedom of speech is something that isn't important. And I'm running for President, Owen, again, because all of my worst fears have been confirmed. And what we have seen in recent times has not been acceptable. I think we need to build a union for the many, not the mob. I went along to an SU Council meeting on February the 22nd. That was the last SU Council meeting I spoke at. That was the last time I turned on my camera, Owen, at an SU meeting. And I'll tell you why. Because when I raised the subject of fines for students who don't completely comply with COVID-19 guidelines, I was attacked. I was shut down by members of the executive committee. I was muted. That's what happened at that meeting. What happened in the weeks afterwards was worse, Owen. We had a targeted, hate-filled and horrendous campaign of abuse, death threats and obscenity. And that was driven by members of the executive committee. It was supported by Roisin McLaughlin. That is very, very serious, Owen. It is extremely serious. And there have been people laughing tonight. There have been people laughing at candidates who have been raising legitimate concerns. And I'm really concerned. I don't have a personal vendetta against anybody at NUI Galway. But what I do have a vendetta against is an idea that you can shut down people you don't agree with. That's wrong. Look, I have a detailed manifesto. I've uploaded that to Twitter. I've uploaded that to social media. Students can look at that. But there's no point us talking about issues here tonight and me talking about issues if students are going to be silenced with death threats, abuse and violence once they speak up at an SU Council meeting. That is wrong. It is unacceptable. And it's what I pledge to change. I want a union where every student is welcomed, respected and included. That's what I promise to build. That's what I pledge to build if I'm elected as president of our students' union. I'm really concerned about the direction things have been going. We need to have every voice heard. We need to stop the bullying. We need to stop the cyber abuse. Because you know why? Too many students are not with us today. Too many people have actually been pulled. Thanks, Owen. But too many people have been pulled out of the corridor, and we don't need any more. We need to say no to the
your time has elapsed.
And that's why I want your number one vote. Thank you. Thank you.
We now move to Joe Mee. Joe Mee, it is now your opportunity to introduce yourself to everyone out there.
My name is Joe Mee, and this is why you should vote for me to be an ex-SU president. I have the experience required to lead the union through this unpredictable year. I represent and engage with students at a local level through CAIM, the Academic Council, Irish Water Safety and the Students' Council, on a national level through the Irish Secular Students' Union, the National Youth Council of Ireland and USI Congress. Finally, on an international level, as an Irish delegate to an EU conference on education in Helsinki. I grew up on an organic smallholder in Old Tipperary with a fascination of the natural world. I've done a BT Young Scientist project on the diverse ecosystem of my local river. I worked many years as an agricultural labourer. The Green Initiative is my policy in creating a sustainable and diverse campus. Its goal is not publicity or window dressing, but achievable actions. Now let's talk about education. I was diagnosed with dyslexia and had a speech impediment. However, I got the help and support that allowed me to become the person I am today. I've done research on dyslexia and has won multiple awards, 2 of which are the BT Young Scientist. I strongly believe all barriers to education need to be moved in a way that is beneficial to all. My policy in education, a modern approach, wants to reconstruct education through a framework of a universal design for learning. As a CAIM leader and class rep, I've seen a lot of negative effects of COVID. Student mental health, physical health, education, and social life have taken a massive blow. I have a step-by-step plan to mitigate the effects of COVID going forward. How to cover my exit plan to recovery, focus on education and COVID, kickstarting clubs and societies, and getting back in the saddle through social events. Creating a fair, diverse, and caring energy is my final policy. It focuses on reinforcing mental health services, all-encompassing sexual health and education, family supports, and fairness. As the Welfare and Equality Officer of the Irish Second Level Students' Union and through the National Youth Council of Ireland, I saw the importance of consultation and support of minorities. I have had meetings with the majority of the Students' Union officers to ensure continuity if elected. If you look at my social media, you will see a team, not an individual. If you elect me, I will work with people, not against them. The executive will be run as a transparent team. We must not be divided. Vote for Joe, president that will offer solutions, not just complaints. Vote for a president with years of experience, not just a year or a week. Vote for a president that has experience to back up their plans. Trust me and vote Joe on the 22nd of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe Mee. And now we move to Roisin McLaughlin. It is now your opportunity to introduce yourself.
Gur míle maithaga Owen. Roisin McLaughlin is anú agus tá mé agree le haid fostmór Uachtarán Comhaltas Amachlainn Ó Galway. Tá mé agree mar thonnach mé an cí le trégu Micléin le linn na pandéma seo. Thonnach mé freisin an farg agus an passion le Micléin le políteachta Amachlainn. Tá lasa Amachlainn rí-haughtach de éspers cláiste agus creidim go bhfaca mé na dúshlán river Micléin gach lá. So Roisin McLaughlin is my name and I'm the current Welfare and Equality Officer. I'm running to be the president of the Students' Union because I've seen the way students have been abandoned throughout this pandemic and before this pandemic. Throughout this pandemic, we have seen the inequalities that have been highlighted, but the reality is those inequalities have always existed in higher education. And we're talking about representation for students. Most students haven't led a life of privilege. Most students can't afford their rent. Most students have to choose between paying for their rent or paying for their food. As Welfare and Equality Officer, I have dealt with issues from homelessness to mental health issues, sustainability issues, stuff relating to consent and sexual assault. I've seen it all and I've seen what the issues on the ground facing students are. And I have the most training and the most qualifications to be able to deal with those student issues and to be able to lead us out of the pandemic. When I ran for the Students' Union, I never expected the year that we had. I never expected our biggest wins to be getting the Bailey Allen Open or to be getting students onto campus for a lecture. But this year, I've managed to secure thousands in refunds for student accommodation. I've managed to secure thousands for the counselling service. I've managed to facilitate hundreds of students in being trained in consent. I've managed to set up a sustainability working group. I've sat on the equality working groups. I've been involved in national campaigns in relation to image-based sexual abuse, and I fought against fees, I fought against fines, I've sat in discipline committees and had to fight actively against students being fined for basic things that they shouldn't be being fined for. And I have consistently stood up against that. I'm the most qualified candidate, I'm the most empathetic candidate, I'm the candidate that you should put your trust in on Thursday and vote to be your president.
Thank you very much, Roisin. And it was a mistake on my behalf at the beginning of this session this evening, but I was supposed to remind all candidates that if they do wish to present in more than one language, they will be afforded time to deliver their speeches in both languages. So if anyone felt that Roisin's time ran longer, it's because we're a bilingual campus and we have to allow for both languages to be fitted in the time. So that's just a reminder. And just on small notes, I would remind all candidates to be respectful to everybody running in the race. We now move to James Pope. James, welcome, and we would like to afford you the opportunity now to introduce yourself to everybody out there.
How's it going, everyone? My name is James Pope. I'm 22 from Galway City, and I'm a final year corporate law student. I'm running to be your next Students' Union president. I'm running to propose new policies with a fresh mindset. I'm running to represent all students, especially those who have felt alienated from college life and society. I don't have experience in the Students' Union, but I don't see this as a disadvantage. I have a clean slate with university and lectures. My relationship with them is not damaged, and this means that I'll be able to effectively consult and negotiate with them. I offer a compulsory consent program to educate young men on consent, an NUIG mental health web chat so our mental health services are better equipped coming out of this pandemic, a more sustainable campus with reductions in plastic and paper, and encouraging our green spaces to be devoted to pollinator gardens on our campus, a fair exam system, review of Christmas Day and Rag Week bans, a reopening ball, a more inclusive campus for all of our students. I want to encourage what you're passionate about outside of college, whether that is through music, sport, film, and many other talents. I believe I can bring balance to our union. I listen to everyone. I'm open to other opinions and viewpoints. I don't shy away from criticism, and I promise to consult with students on every decision that I make. I've placed my confidence in you, and I'm asking you to place your confidence in me this Thursday by giving me your #1 vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James Pope. We are now going to move to the questions, and as always, the names are thrown in a hat and we pick out an order to work with just to make it a bit fair and give people a bit more breathing space between questions. The order for the first does actually begin with Simeon again, though. Simeon, the first question will go to you. And I'll read the question for you now, just as I get my admin here in the background. Excuse me for the delay. Students will be coming back on campus and will have little interaction on campus this year. What will you do when students come back on campus to give a good experience to all of them?
Well, Owen, that's a great question, and it's a very important issue. And I think I've been clear in this campaign what the most important thing we need to do to give students a good experience is, and that's to make sure that everybody feels welcomed, included, and respected. Students don't have a good experience if they know that they'll get subjected to abuse, death threats, or obscenity online after they speak up at an SU council meeting. At the moment, though, that's what certain students are experiencing, and it's very, very serious. You know, I've been receiving emails and messages, Owen, from students across campus over the last year, and they've been telling me that they're being targeted and threatened by the left at NUI Galway. They're being targeted and threatened because they don't agree with everything the Students' Union stand for. That's not right. It's not acceptable. That's the way things work in parts of the world that we don't want to be like. That's the way things work in dark societies, but it's happening right here now at NUI Galway, and it's extremely, extremely serious. Something that I think is really important is that we stand up for students' rights and their freedoms. And that's something I have a track record of doing. You know, Roisin talks about a track record of fighting for this and that and fighting against fines. That's just nonsense. It really is, because what we have seen from every member of the executive committee of the Students' Union is failure over the last year. We have seen a failure to stand up for students' rights. You know, I had to take to the street and stand up for students' rights in relation to the community promise back in August and September. Now, what was the community promise? That was a document that would have completely undermined students' rights.
Your time has come to an end, Simeon.
Yeah, so well, that was a document that completely undermined students' rights.
Your time has come to an end.
And Roisin supported that document. That's the problem. They
Simeon,
supported.
I'll end your contribution there. Thank you very much. We now move to Joe Mee. Joe Mee, the same question to you. I will repeat the question for you here as well. Joe, students will be coming back on campus and a lot will have little interaction on campus this year. What will you do when students come back on campus to give a good experience to all of them?
One of my 4 main points on my manifesto is how to cope with my 3-step plan to recovery. This can be a huge issue for students moving forward, and that's why I think I need to address it in a step-by-step way. The first step is education and COVID. Peer mentoring groups that are opt-in, recording of lectures and tutorials post-COVID so students that do not feel safe to come back on campus do not have to. Prioritize on-campus labs, tutorials, and research. We need to get back on campus first before we can actually, start dealing with the problems. Clubs and societies, now they've been hugely affected by COVID. University sports open in line with NGB recommendations, so the non-governmental body, so the national governing body, so that is the people that are in charge of the sports. They're the best people to really decide when clubs and societies can reopen, because last year they didn't reopen as fast as they should have. Then as well, fair access to facility and resource for clubs and societies, accessibility in sport and societies. So students that may not normally go can now go into these things. Trials and demos for clubs and societies. A lot of students haven't had any experience to play sports in a long time. So it's good to give them trials and demos so they know what they're actually in for. Getting back in the saddle. So this is the kind of the social element. College has been just not fun anymore and students are just fed up. So let's try and have fun again. A reorientation festival that's available for all when it's safe to do so. That is the most important thing, when it's safe to do so. First years, we need to give back what's lost. Things like a first year Debs, they missed so many things, so many opportunities that all of us other people took for granted. Let's try and prioritize them and give them the year that they missed.
Your time is coming to an end, Joe.
Okay, yeah, so safe and social events according to each level of lockdown. That's my manifesto. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe. We now move to Roisin McLaughlin. Roisin, I'll repeat the question for you also. Students will be coming back on campus and a lot will have little interaction with on campus this year. What will you do when students come back on campus to give a good experience to all of them?
Sin ceist ionach ar dús bé mé cant faoin rudí ag banse amach agam hana féin. So I'll talk about the things that I've already done first. So this year, as I've said already, it was a year like no other, but we still managed to double engagement, which in the pandemic is amazing. Right here, we have 250 people at SU Hustings on top of YouTube. Our class rep council had 250 minimum, whereas last year it was around 30 to 40. Our welfare crew has 40 people. Hump Day Hooley had hundreds of people every week. But some of the things that we already organised were the walk and talks, which were so beneficial to one particular group of students who have been so abandoned this year, which is international students, and the loneliness has skyrocketed for them. So we had the walk and talks, we had the beach cleanups, we had the Hump Day Hooley every week, and the event crew organised a movie night every week, and the SU was doing Stitch and Bitch. So there's the foundation there that if the student union can do this during a pandemic, then I can do things out of a pandemic. And some of my main plans are to have an NUIG summer ball after semester 2 exams, and it is achievable because Trinity College in Dublin do it, to have weekly DJ nights in Sult, so that gives a platform to the DJ Society as well, to continue the welfare calls that we did at the start of the year, to keep that check-in with students, to check that they are doing okay, especially if we are online, because you can't tell when people have their cameras off, you can't tell if students are struggling or not. To continue things like the mentor programs and buddy programs. And one of the things that I want to implement, which is unique to my manifesto, is to introduce a Gaelcara scheme for people who want to learn Irish. And there's also the social aspect to that, because it's a scheme used in many Gaeltacht. It's a scheme used in Gaeltacht which buddies learners with fluent speakers up and makes people make friends.
Gurmagid. We now move to James. James, the same question for you. Of course, I'll repeat the question for you also. The question is, James, students will be coming back on campus and a lot will have little interaction on campus this year. What will you do when students come back on campus to give a good experience to all of them?
Yeah, so I have a whole section in my manifesto based on welcoming back student life. So it's very important that we realize that we'll have 2 sets of first years on our campus. So they need to have proper supports there for them. A lot of them wouldn't have sat exams for well over a year. They wouldn't have done in-person learning. So we need to be supportive of them. You know, this is first year's one of the most formative year of your college experience where you make friends. You know, I knew that that was the way it was for me. So a refreshers week and a reorientation week is essential for these students. As well as that, I think that we should take the opportunity that we've had no social life this year to campaign for Christmas Day back. I think Rag Week might be a bit of a stretch, but Christmas Day could definitely be achievable. As well as that, other than Rag Week, Christmas Day, part of my manifesto is to create a reopening ball. This is something that students have supported an awful lot, and to have a major college ticketed event every month. Part of this major college ticket event will have student nurses free tickets to student nurses for their heroics during the pandemic. So as well as this, many students won't want to go back to normality and they might be overwhelmed by that. So smaller scale events will be set up and one-to-one meetups will be set up for those students also.
Thank you very much, James Pope. I appreciate that. We now are, if I have my sequencing right, we'll be moving to the second question. And this question will begin with Joe Mee. So Joe, you'll be asked the question first in this instance. And the second question of tonight's presidential hustings is, Acalatat hu con Janav son na Gaeilge, what are you going to do for the Irish language?
Well, that's a very interesting one there. So myself, I'm dyslexic. I didn't do Irish in school, and I'm someone that really struggled. I had a speech impediment, so I really struggled to learn English. I'm coming out of the perspective of someone that wants to give everyone the opportunity to learn Irish, wants to do events that I would want to attend and that I want to improve my Irish. So I've had 3 people help me out on this, Craig Smith, Aoife Sidway, and Matthew Talbot, both brilliant people that are very involved in the Irish language. And what we're going to do, one of the main things, is have an Irish award. So this award would improve the spoken language of people, a 1-semester award. So international students could take part in this. And it's about growing the Irish language, something similar to the Employability Award, but for the Irish language. Then mentorship buddy programs, where a fluent speaker will be paired with a non-fluent speaker. I know Roshan mentioned this before, and I think that's an excellent idea. Other things like events in Irish. So an Irish cultural immersion night once a month, where you can experience Irish language, Irish culture, the Cayley dancing, trad music, and just a total immersion in the Irish culture and language to get people into it. Things like Irish speed dating, and have different badges so people of different levels of Irish would know how to interact with each other. Everywhere from fluent speakers to people with a few cúpla focal that want to just get involved. So yeah, my Irish policy is all about trying to make people that don't normally do Irish get into the community and grow the Irish speaking community. And from the perspective of someone that would really like to start learning Irish in a productive way.
Thank you very much, Joe, and your time was just up there also. The same question will now go to Roisin. I'll repeat the question for you also. Acalatat con Janav son na Gaeilge, what are you going to do for the Irish language?
So Amlena at Debri Mela Hifka Gaeilge hun sim ecail inélge mask na Mclean on warsin dagri me rang na Gaeilge le chunner na Gaeilge agus hig me rún hig choria cultus na Mclean hun anium ahrú go hifical go Gaeilge go lagan Gaeilge. So instead of council I changed it to choria. Some of the things that I want to do is, as I said, introduce the Gael Car scheme ensure the introduction of a scheme Conitha in Carrick Village, which is also done in Trinity. So again, it's achievable. It's where Irish speakers can live together. You get €1,000 reduction. Janie may Stokrocht freshen do rang na Gaelga Siranashka. Janie may Kinshig will Gaelga Ernglar a Gach Crenu Dun Kishtagno. Janie may Kinsha will Gach service fall 3 man na Gaelga. So I would make sure that every service is bilingual. I'd make sure that Gaelga is on the clár at every single meeting. I would lobby staff for free Irish classes. I would boilem cadrah a chinneil idir Cultus na Mcallick agus Common Gaelic. So maintain the relationship we've built this year between the Common Gaelic and between the SU, and make sure that NUAG is really living up to its standards. Like is Cultus ga hang hug much, is Oscail ga hang hug much. So Tashe antogtak will Gaelga agnutron. Tashe antogtak will passion will grad on Gaelga agnutron. We need a president that has passion for the Irish and that has Irish. Because we're a bilingual union, we're a bilingual university. And to be honest, NUAG isn't living up to its standard as a bilingual university. Most people's ID cards don't even have the FADAs on them. Most emails aren't bilingual. That these are the very basic things that we need to do. We need social spaces for Gaelgery as well. We need somewhere that Gaelga is a minority language. They're a minority community, so they need a space to be able to speak in their native language. Native speakers need to be able to do their modules and their courses treat Gaelga if they want to do that. The staff need to be equipped with the equipment to be able to mark and to grade through Irish. These are very basic things. It's Carta Changa, Carta Dana, they're human rights. I'm from the north. I was never taught Irish.
Time, Roisin.
I was never taught Irish in school. We need to put to the forefront Gaelga.
Time, Roisin, I'm going to mute you out. The same question now goes to James Pope. We're going to move you now, and I will repeat the question for you also. James Pope, Acad Atatu Chunjanav or Son Gaelga, what are you going to do for the Irish language?
So I'll tell you about my experience learning Irish in school. In the first years of school, I was just a disinterested student, and obviously that had an effect on me learning the language. So I did pass Irish for junior cert, I did pass Irish for 5th year, and it was only in December of leaving cert that I went up to Honours Irish because I have a decent memory and I realised that I could learn off an awful lot of the essays and a lot of the oral answers and not actually learn the language because I didn't have a hope of doing it. So the truth is my Irish is not good, it's not up to standard, but I know how important the Irish language is to this university in general, and it is to a large portion of students at this university. So I will work with the Irish officer if elected, and if elected I was also partake in Irish classes to scrub up on my Irish.
Thank you very much, James Pope. I hope I didn't interrupt you and you're happy with the time allotted to you there. I will move on to Simeon Burke now, and I will also repeat the question for you, Simeon. Acad Atatu Chunjanav or Son Gaelga, what are you going to do for the Irish language?
Yeah, Owen. Obviously, I'm passionate about the Irish language. I think it needs to be promoted. I think it needs to be pushed forward. And, you know, I was speaking last year on TG Cahar about the community promise, and that was so important to me because the Carta na Mcallick, that the rights of the students, they're what matter and they're what I stand up for. But the big problem is that the Students' Union and Roisin Students' Union and the Students' Union that's been there for the last year has been against students' rights. You know, as I was saying, the community promise document, it said we would do whatever the university management told us to do. Now, I wouldn't get a 4-year-old to sign that document going into a creche, because really what it is an annihilation of our rights. But our students' union, I want to show a picture of what our students' union were doing. And I'll just put it up here. I think it's good to put it up there and just show what they were doing. That's Porrick Toomey, the president of the students' union, and he's supporting a document that completely undermines students' rights. I see my camera has been turned off, which is terrible. I don't know. I need that turned on again.
It's a verbal hosting.
Yeah. So we'll put it up there. So that's the president of the students' union signing away students' rights. So Roisin talks about fighting for students' rights, but she had nothing to say about this. And I think we just need to have a look at that and see. So this is what we've been getting, double talk from Roisin, double talk from our students' union.
Related to the Irish language.
Right. Yeah, well, Owen, as I said,
time, Simeon. Your time ran out there, Simeon. The question was on the Irish language, and you were muted because your time had run out. But we will move on to the next question as a part of the hustings for SU Present 2021. The next question I will be asking, the order of asking in this case, I think I will be starting with James Pope in this instance. James, the question. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Excuse me, my order just came across there. The questioning begins with Roisin in this instance. And Roisin, I will begin by asking you the question here. Sustainability was the issue students brought forward to the forefront of the university. What are your plans to make NUI Galway a more sustainable place?
Gurmila. So I'd start by saying I'm a vegan. I'm also a member of the Vegan Society and the Environmental Society. So being vegan isn't just about food, it's a lifestyle. It's not just if it's just about food, then you're plant-based. It's a lifestyle. And I was plant-based at first, but I'm going for the lifestyle now in everything that I do. Some of the things that I want to do, I set up the sustainability working group this year. I have provided sustainable period products and provided awareness on the sustainable period products. Some of the things I want to do is set up Depop markets on campus, lobby for more vegan and vegetarian options. So while the Salt was open, we had vegan hot chocolate, we had vegan fish and chips. So we are getting there, but we're not there. But Tomachuk Dollar I Goma, where there's progress there. Another thing I want to do is continue lobbying for a plastic-free NUAG. It's a campaign that's going on at the moment with our sustainability working group, and lobby for NUAG to commit to being carbon neutral by 2030. The next biggest crisis, well, the biggest crisis at the moment for our generation is the climate crisis, and there's no denying it. So I will be the president that commits to fighting the climate crisis.
Thank you very much, Roisin McLaughlin. The same question now will be posed. I do need to remind all candidates involved in the hustings this evening that it is a verbal hustings and signs will not be tolerated. And that is the reason for turning cameras on and off when we step outside the boundaries of a verbal hustings. And to move on, the question now is going to James Pope, and I apologize, James, for flagging you there and putting you on edge and then taking back off edge. I apologize for making that mistake. But the question I will repeat for you: sustainability was the issue students brought to the forefront of the university. What are your plans to make NUI Galway a more sustainable place?
Yeah, you're all good on. It's fine. So yeah, I have a sustainability part of my manifesto. So the main points are encouraging the university to hand over 50% of their green spaces to the National Biodiversity Plan. So this plan allows wild gardens to grow in green spaces. So it creates pollinator gardens, which increases biodiversity by increasing species of plant life and animals. So we have quite a large portion of Galway city centre on our campus. So if we can devote 50% of the green spaces to this plan, it will be really significant. Another point I have is to plant 100 trees on campus in commemoration of the 100-year anniversary of our nation's independence. And then I'm also going to campaign for a phased reduction to a paperless university and ensure that all our events will be plastic free.
Thank you very much, James Pope. The same question now goes to Simeon Burke, and the question that we're asking you, Simeon, is: sustainability was the issue students brought to the forefront of the university. What are your plans to make NUI Galway a more sustainable place?
Now, Owen, I just need to say that I'm not getting treated properly here tonight at all, because we have the camera constantly being turned off when we have simply the truth being held up, which is that our students' union has sold out students' rights. Now, Pádraig Toomey seems to be in control of my camera. He seems to be in control of my mic. I understand he doesn't like the truth getting out about what he's been doing and what himself and Roisin have been doing, selling out students. I understand that, but it is not fair or right to be muting and turning off my camera. That is unacceptable.
The question is on sustainability.
Wrong. There's something wrong though, Owen, if we can't have a debate tonight. We get one opportunity a year.
Sustainability was the issue students brought to the forefront of the university. What are your plans to make NUI Galway a more sustainable place?
I am being muted, Owen. I'm not getting treated the same as others now. My camera is being turned off.
Everybody's being treated identically.
It's not acceptable, Owen. It's not acceptable. This is the way the Students' Union has been operating for a very long time.
Of the university. What are your plans to make NUI Galway a more sustainable place?
This is the way the Students' Union are treating people. They're shutting people down when they hold up the truth. That's the truth. That's what's been happening. That's what the Students' Union has been doing. They've been getting €270,000 a year.
Would you like to address the question of sustainability on campus?
I will answer the questions. Owen, I will answer the questions in whatever way.
Your time will be running out shortly.
You're shutting down candidates. You're shutting down people who say the truth. And
your time has run out at this point, Simeon.
From things he's been telling me, he seems to be in control of my camera and my mind.
Thank you, Simeon. Your time is up, and we now move on to, just let me check my list. It is now the opportunity of Joe Me to answer the same question. Joe, I will repeat the question for you also. Joe, sustainability was the issue students brought to the forefront of the university. What are your plans to make NUI Galway a more sustainable place?
Well, as I've said before, I've grown up in organic smallholding. My dad has a master's in soil science, and I did a young scientist project on my local river looking at the ecosystem. And there's a hell of a lot of waffle and false promises when it comes to green initiatives. So here's my step-by-step plan to get this done. And again, one of the 4 points of my manifestos is the green initiative. So make campus cafes and restaurants sustainable, segregation of waste, wild habitats across campus. This is pollinator gardens, different habitats. And we need to do an audit of the university to see what biodiversity, what habitats are needed and what habitats will be the most beneficial and which are the most biodiverse as well. Then exploring potential of renewables on campus. I'm an engineer. I like the idea of renewables. I like to see them put in place. Cross-campus energy audits. So looking at each building individually and seeing where we can save power. It might be something as simple as changing light bulbs, or changing the heating system, or changing the windows. Another thing is guidance on sustainable living for students. So how we can live sustainably in a way that's not necessarily penance. That is just making small changes that can have big effects. So my policies have always been about actually making change and actually doing something about it, because the Greens is something that just doesn't seem to actually amount to anything when people make policies. They make very vague promises. But I'm someone that worked in GIY last year, so that's Grow It Yourself. That's the main organisation in Ireland that educates school children on gardening. And if you go to their facility in Waterford, you will see most of the land was dug over by me over the summer. And I helped set up the pollinator gardens there. So I'm someone that can actually do what they say.
Thank you very much, Joe Me. And if I have my listing right, that everybody has an opportunity to answer on the question of sustainability at this point. At this point, as is tradition, I hand over to the sitting Students' Union President for the next question, and I will.
I think you muted yourself there earlier. Okay, Owen. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for everyone who's come. You know, we have a lot of people watching in the Zoom and also even on YouTube as well, so thanks for that. The question I'm going to ask is, students are often the one who have to pick things such as repeat exam fees, late payment of fines, in even the $3,000 that undergrads pay, and much more for postgrads and international students. So how will you tackle this if elected? And the order is going to be first, James. So
financial constraints is obviously the biggest barrier to people's education, but I don't think that it's realistic really to talk about abolishing fees. You know, I think we saw in the recent Dáil vote with the abolition of fees that it was struck down in the Dáil. That didn't really have any roadmap. As to how it will be introduced. So it's not realistic. I think, you know, we see with the student levy referendum at the moment, and that plans to reduce the student levy. You know, that hasn't been thought through completely, and it's very hard for a candidate to speak out against financial reduction for students. But the fact is, it hasn't been thought out correctly due to the fact that societies and clubs were not consulted on it, and a middle ground offer was offered to the Students' Union as well, and it wasn't even considered. You know, I think we should campaign for maybe reductions in repeat exam fees rather than seeing a complete abolishment of it, as I don't think that that's realistic. And I think if you continue to campaign and lobby for repeat fees being abolished, they're not going to be abolished at all, and it's just going to remain at 295. If you campaign to reduce it, it's a lot more realistic. So my proposal is to reduce it to €100, and that is actually realistic for it to be passed. So instead of it remaining at 295 and campaigning for it to be abolished, I think that we should campaign for a reduction, much more realistic.
Thank you. Perfect. And then the next person is going to be Simeon. So I'll ask the question one more time though. So it's students are often the one that has to pick up the bill and pay out of pocket for a lot, such as repeat exam fees, late payment of fines, and even the 3,000 undergrads pay, and much more for postgrads and international students. So how would you tackle this if elected? Simeon, you're next.
Yeah, well, I can't start my video, Porrick, so I don't know what's wrong.
I've clicked.
I know. Well, I can't. I keep clicking start and it won't turn on, so I don't know. It's very difficult, Porrick, and I understand that you and others on the union might not want the truth to be pointed out in relation to.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question one more time. I didn't even mute you that time. Students are often the one that has to pick up the bill and pay out of pocket for a lot such as repeat exam fees, late payment fines, and even the 3,000 we pay for undergrads, and much more for postgrad and international students. How would you tackle this if elected? I'm going to try to start your video and then click ask to mute again.
My video was able to be on, but the union don't seem to want to turn it on. I don't know who's controlling it, but I can't turn it on. But look, I want to talk about that, but I just do need to make the point that there are, I mean, Roisin McLaughlin has a big poster up behind her there, but like, you know, obviously I need to get mine turned off then, if that's what I'm hearing. So we need fairness and respect for everyone, not just for the left. That's what my point is. But look, you're asking about students paying for things. The truth is, Porrick, you've signed on, and the Students' Union and the people on it have signed on to fines for students who don't completely comply with COVID-19 guidelines. You've signed on to fines. So how do you expect students to pay for things if they're being fined through the roof for meeting up with their friends? And yet when I pointed that out, what did I face? Tactics like the ones here tonight. Like, it's just not right that I can't turn on my screen here, but like, this is the way people are being treated who disagree with the left in our Students' Union. But look, when I spoke up about that, I got subjected to the same tactics. So look, of course, students are struggling financially. That's my whole point. They are struggling financially. They're struggling in so many ways, and that should be respected. But you know, the Students' Union, and when you were head of the union, you signed on to fines for these students, and then Porrick, you shut them down when they try and speak up and say this isn't right. Like tonight now, I'm being shut down. So that's wrong. We need to change that. We can't have mob rule, which is what we're heading for, because ultimately students will bear the brunt of that. They'll bear the financial brunt when there's mob rule, when it's just the left that are allowed to speak. But you know, that's what's been happening. It's wrong. It needs to change. And there's so many issues. Like, think of the mess of the student levy referendum, where students are being treated in a detrimental fashion. They're being treated in a detrimental fashion by.
Sorry, Simeon, that was over the time, but thank you. And then it's going to be the same question now for, so next up is Joe. So I'm going to repeat it one more time, just so we all keep it in our minds. So students are often the one that have to pick up the bill and pay out of pocket for a lot, such as repeat exam fees, late payment fines, and even the 3,000 we pay for undergrads, and much more for postgrads and international students. How will you tackle this if elected? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Porrick, for that question. Well, from talking to different people, I found multiple different issues. So talking to Niamh, the international students officer, the fees for international students has increased again this year. There's no cap on a national level for it, and the university can just increase it at their will. So that's wrong, and that needs to change. Also, the insurance for international students the health insurance is ridiculously high. Again, that needs to change. And then even for postgrads, they're not paid. A lot of them aren't paid for doing tutorials. And again, that's wrong. And they should be paid for the work they do. They are graduates at the end of the day. Another thing is exam fees. This comes up every year. This is something that's a constant issue for students.
you know, it could be something that makes a student drop out of college because they can't afford the repeat fees. Now that's not right. I guess also when I was in the academic council of the university, I did bring in a word change for the accommodation that the university is going to build in their strategic plan. And my change was affordable. So now they have to build affordable housing as a result of my input on the academic council. And it's part of the 5-year plan, and there is capital investment for that. So I would push to get affordable housing built on Nuns Island to help mitigate the cost of housing for students. I think is one of the greatest issues, and also sourcing housing is a problem. And then family supports, so free or at least subsidized childcare for mature students and other students that do have families. You know, younger students that have families as well. And I guess that's what I'm going to do. And yeah, hopefully that will help students and help stop the burden on them financially.
Thank you. And so next we're going to go with, it is, sorry, check my list. It's Roisin. So I'm going to ask one more time, the final time, is going to be, students are often the one who has to pick up the bill and pay out of pocket for a lot, such as repeat exam fees, late payment of fines, and even the 3,000 we pay in fees for undergrads and much more for postgrad and international students. How will you tackle this if elected?
Yeah, it's 5 more sin a fark, so one of the first question that I'll put to people is, a lot of candidates are saying that the repeat fee be abolished is unachievable. So the one question is, how did the student union secure repeat fee waivers for every single recipient of SUSI and the financial aid fund? Because NUI Galway has the highest percentage of SUSI recipients in Ireland. So it's achievable and it can be done, but it needs someone who's outspoken and someone who will lobby the university, work with, but also lobby to achieve that. One of the other things I want to do is ensure the continuation of the T fund for our trans students, some of our most vulnerable students on campus, which helps with funds for transitioning, funds such as a deed poll, makeup, binders, mainly anything they need. And another thing that I did this year was the recipients of the financial aid fund, when they were getting their money, weren't getting notified. It just landed into their bank account. So I secured a promise that there will be better communication next year, which benefits all of our students. Another thing I did was in support of student parents who are often so forgotten about. The NUIG once again raised fees for the creche for student parents during a pandemic, no less. And I fought against them. I stood up to them. In the committee meetings, one of the things I want to do is set up an SU hardship voucher scheme. Student poverty is real, it exists, and we need to start talking about it. So many students aren't eating, or their grocery shop is €5 max a week because they just can't afford it. Most people aren't living at home and don't have the bank of their mommy and daddy. So set up the SU hardship voucher scheme, lobby for caps on international fees. The big things is lobby for student nurses and midwives to be paid.
Your time's running out, Roisin.
There we go.
Cool. So that comes to all the questions there. I'll give it back to Owen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pádraig, and thanks to all the candidates. We now move towards the giving all candidates opportunity to summation, and I would point out at this time that I've made several attempts to restart Simeon Burke's camera in the time that we have been I've been off screen with no joy at this point, but we will have audio from Simeon, hopefully, to give him equal opportunity to make his summation. The order for the summation will begin with James Pope. James, I'm going to hand over to you now, and in your own time, you may begin. You'll have 90 seconds, by the way, and in your own time, you may begin.
Look, I'll keep this short. If you agree that we need a consent program that educates young men on consent, if you agree that we need an NUIG mental health web chat to better equip our mental health services coming out of this pandemic, if you believe that we need a more sustainable campus, if you would like to see Christmas Day back again, if you would like to see a reopening ball, if you would like to see a major college ticketed event every month, if you would like to see a more inclusive campus, then you should vote for me on Thursday. If you don't agree with anything I just said, you have other options. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James Pope, and also appreciate your taking part in the hustings this evening. We now move on to Roisin McLaughlin. You will have the same opportunity as the other candidates. You have 90 seconds to make your summation, and we will hand over to you to begin in your own time now.
Akarja, it's been my absolute pleasure to be your Welfare and Equality Officer this year. It's been one of the hardest years that students have faced. I beg anyone to name me a group of people who have been more abandoned by the government than students have this year. And on the union, I have used every opportunity to lobby. I've met with every single Galway TD. I made every single Galway TD sign the Education for All pledge. If you want a president that will fight back against cuts, that will fight back against lack of communication, that will fight for better support structures for our students, because without students, there is no university. Students make the university. And the one thing I'll say is running isn't about me, it's about the students. And I haven't just became vocal during elections. I've been vocal since I was 16 years of age. I was never involved with the union. I wasn't a class rep, but I was a vulnerable student. And I was the vulnerable student that went to the welfare officer in first year because I needed the help of the welfare officer. And that's why I'm the welfare officer now. It's because I want to help students. So I urge everyone to read my manifesto. If you want a sustainable campus, a campus Gahanga, a bilingual campus, a president that will fight for your needs and fight against fascism, fight against hate, and fight for students' rights, then vote all Roisin McLaughlin on the 22nd of April. Gur míle maith.
Thank you very much, Roisin and McLaughlin, and thanks also for taking part in the hustings this evening. We now move to Joe Mee. Joe, you will also have 90 seconds to make your summation, and I will unmute you and you may begin in your own time as you feel comfortable.
I think sometimes there's too much fighting in this world. On the 22nd of April, we'll face an important decision. You will have to decide who is the best person to lead the union out of the turmoil of COVID. I did not intend to run this year, but seeing the struggle of students this year was hard. Many students that exist, many of the problems that have existed for a long time have been highlighted over COVID. Students do not have the capacity to deal with added stress. I ran this year as I felt a huge change can occur, and I believe I'm the person to change this. Student activism is part of my identity. I have experienced years of engagement, so I can adapt. I know how to show restraint. I'm a president of solutions, not just complaints. If you want a union that is united, that works together, uses research, consultation, and case studies of good practice to inform their decision. If you want a president with a realistic, achievable manifesto, then trust me and vote Joe on the 22nd of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joe Mee, and indeed thank you for taking part in the hustings and the race also. We now will move on to Simeon Burke. Simeon, you will be given the same opportunity. I'm hitting the start video button also if I can make that work. And you will be given the same 90 seconds as the rest to summate the campaign, and you may start in your own time when you're comfortable to start there. I did attempt a video there again.
Well, Owen, tonight has been a perfect example of the way our union is working. And it's just biased, Owen. It's not right. And my camera now has been turned off. No other candidates has. Roisin has a poster behind her, but no other candidate's camera has been turned off. Utterly biased, utterly unfair, shutting down debate, shutting down the truth. That's what the union has been doing. And, you know, there are so many issues. I wanted to come here tonight and I want to talk about issues. I want to talk about students' rights and freedoms. I want to talk about our societies and our clubs, the wonderful student services that have come under such intense pressure and that are in danger now of being destroyed. But we are not getting fairness, Owen. And tonight I've been muted. My camera has been disabled. I'm not getting treated the same as others because I'm speaking in a way the left don't like. That is wrong. That is how our union has been operating. And do you know what it is, Owen? And to anybody out there listening, it's mob rule. The left shut down, intimidate, harass and bully anybody they don't like. I am really concerned about the future of our union if certain people get elected. I'm really concerned. Too many students are not with us today because of bullying and abuse, but it's been promoted by people in the union. What happened here tonight is wrong, but it's the way our union is operating, and it's the way it's going to continue to operate unless we vote for change. It's really serious. It's existential, the crisis now facing our union. If we're not uniting, it's very serious. So if you want change, vote for me. But what happened here tonight is just completely wrong. Very, very sad. So wrong.
Time is at
so wrong.
And as was the pattern for the entire night this evening, I muted everybody just at the just over the 90-second mark with some grace for their last sentence or two, which has been the policy throughout the debate. There were 11 candidates in the debate, and also would like to thank Simeon Burke also for taking part in the hustings and the race also, and for his contributions this evening. The people running for VP for Education, thank you very much. Nasa Gorrell, Cody Mcgivern, Connell Mccallick. VPs for Welfare and Equality, Cora Clark, Mcinseer and Conor Walters, and the candidates for President that you've been speaking to and hearing from most recently, Simeon Burke, Joe Mee, Roisin McLaughlin and James Pope. I would encourage everybody to check out the election manifesto material that all of these candidates have posted up. The voting begins on Thursday morning for these 3 positions, and also the referendum, which there's plenty of material online that you can make your own decisions on in regards to the referendum also. I'd like to thank everybody for taking part. There's 250 people out there who've had the patience to engage with the democratic process on campus, and I think that's exceptionally important regardless of how any of you vote. I am very, I've chaired 3 of these hustings, and it's the largest turnout I've ever seen, so I would thank you all for being here this evening. I am going to start saying that you may all X out and leave the chat and go back to your lives. And thank you all very much for taking part this evening.